How can it be okay that some schools are a pipeline to prison while others are a pipeline to college? As you know, these two institutions paint two clearly different mental images. The first is full of potential and bright, while as the second is often thought of as dark and a dead end. Today we will learn about the harsh reality facing many of our American students. As a teacher with experiences in a variety of schools and environments, I have seen firsthand how a group of students and the way they're educated and disciplined can really change the trajectory of their future. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to define what it is to the school to prison pipeline, share the statistics about the number of students affected, the root cause, and hopefully give you some tools to make a difference. First, let me define what school to prison pipeline is. Christopher Malott in the School to Prison Pipeline, a comprehensive report published in 2016, tells us that a pipeline is best understood by a set of principles and practices in a school that makes it more likely for students to face criminal involvement with the juvenile courts than to attain a quality education. How many students are being affected by this school to prison pipeline? In 1993, 1.5 million students were either suspended and or expelled from school. You're 5 times more likely to end up in the court system if that occurs. That number more than doubled within 4 years to a whopping 3.1 million students, which is extremely scary. Now let's break that number down a little bit more. 43% of those students were Black. 22% of those students were Hispanic. 16% white. 3/4 of them were males. You also see elevated numbers in the gay and lesbian, biracial and transgender communities, as well as students with mental and physical disabilities. All of these statistics were found in the School to Prison Pipeline, a primer for social workers written by Susan MacArthur in 2017. How did it get to this point? Let's look at some of the root causes. In the late 1990s and the early 2000s, we saw a rise of gun violence in schools, which in turn caused schools to place zero tolerance policies. These policies make normal routine disciplines now a huge threat for these students. We also saw a rise by 54% of schools with officers in the building, police officers, that were trained in law enforcement and not in childhood and adolescent development. In a TED Talk by Alison Goffman, who is an urban psychologist, she says the following: young students on this journey are meeting with probation officers instead of teachers. They're going to court dates instead of class. And their junior year abroad is instead a trip to the juvenile correctional facilities. That's really scary. It also tells us in a School to Pipeline, an article found in the New York Times, written in 2013, that when you decriminalize, however, criminalizing routine disciplinary problems, they have damaged the lives of many children, making them more likely to drop out of school, entangling them sometimes permanently into the criminal justice system. How can schools, teachers, parents, and communities work toward not being a part of the prison to pipeline institution? In an article called The Busting School Pipeline to Prison, Jason Landberg and Angela Kalafi wrote in 2017, they shared 10 ways that teachers and educators can make a change. I'm going to share with you a few that I think everybody can do. The first is to adopt a social economic lens. The second is to develop a trusting and supportive relationships with a sense of community with students and their families. The third is to establish clear, simple, fair, and high behavioral expectations. And the last is to get involved. Again, today we've talked about what it means to be a prison to school pipeline. We've talked about how we can make a difference. We've talked about the students that are mostly affected by these statistics, and then also ways that we can make a difference. Let's take a minute to think back. As we all know, it's different for every school and every environment, But if you don't step up and make a difference, you might just miss it.